Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Thumma ma ba'd. So as we were interrupted, had some technical difficulties, a break in the session. This is a part 2 of the last class for Usool Tafsir. So one of the points we were making, Barakallahu Fikum, is the 3 primary reasons that the Quran was sent. The 3 primary reasons that the Quran was sent down. The first one, the Shaykh he had mentioned, Nazala bi-qira'ati, Nazala bil-qira'ati, or bi-qira'ati lit-ta'abbud. Nazala bi-qira'ati lit-ta'abbud, which means Nazala, it was sent down bi-qira'ati, in order to read, lit-ta'abbud, as an act of worship. The second, lifahmiha, in order that the Quran be understood, as Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has mentioned, وَلِيَتَدَبَّرُ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ, so that those who have intellect, those who have minds, can ponder, can look at the Quran, can explore the various meanings of the Quran. And then the last thing is تطبيقه أو العمل به, or what is more understood as the application of the Quran. تطبيق, applying it, وعمل به, to act according to the injunctions. These are the 3 primary reasons for the Quran being sent, as Allah has mentioned in various places in the Quran. في آية متوفر بل كثر في آية كثيرة هذه معان. In many places, several places in the Quran has been exemplified, rather numerous verses in the Quran to prove these 3 points. We have mentioned some of the reasons for the dakhil. We said last time, things meaning that have entered into the explanation of the Quran. People who Allah blessed to gain the knowledge, and they became proficient in the knowledge of explaining the Quran, which there's a lot of things you have to learn in order to do it. Those scholars, starting from the companions of the Messenger and their students, which is the 2nd generation, the Tabi'een, and their students, the Itba' Tabi'een. From the very beginning of the explaining of the Quran during the time of the Prophet, we said people interjected faulty meanings. And we give the example of Mughir ibn Shurba, who the Prophet sent to Najran. And when he went to quote the verse in Surah to Maryam, the story of Mary, يا أخت هارون ما كان أبوك سوءا وما أمك بغيا وما أمك بغيا ما كان أبوك امرأ سوءا ما كان أبوك امرأ سوءا وما كان أمك بغيا. And your father was not an evil man, neither was your mother promiscuous, lewd. They said that this meaning meant the sister of Harun, and how could this be, as they were from 2 total generations. So we understood that this is a faulty explanation of the Quran. This cannot be accepted. And when Mughira went back to the Prophet, he told him, when you go back to them, say, Allah سميتم أبنائكم أو أولادكم بأسماء أنبياء وصالحين. Did you not all have a custom, you Christians, of naming your children or your sons from the names of prophets and righteous people? Then this means that, no, this is not the meaning of the verse, that Mary is the sister of Harun, the brother of Moses, but rather she had a brother who was named after prophets' names, and one of the names is Harun, which this is the Harun Allah was mentioning in Surah Maryam. Another faulty meaning we said of the tafsir, wa barakallahu fikum, is the statement that's attributed to Abdullah ibn Abbas. The statement is attributed to Abdullah ibn Abbas, to Jaman of Quran, the one that the Prophet ﷺ, he hugged him, and he's from the Prophet's family tree, and he's from the ulama, scholars of the explanation of Quran, where the Prophet, he said, Allahumma fiqhu din wa allamahu ta'wilih. Allahumma fiqhu ad-din wa allamahu ta'wil. O Allah, give him a total understanding of the religion and give him the insight to give the meanings of the Quran. This Abdullah ibn Abbas is attributed to him that the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَإِذْ كُنَّا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. The common verse in the Quran in many places. And when we said to the angels, meaning Allah himself commanding the angels, bow down to Adam, which was a way of showing respect and giving honoraries to one another. When Allah commanded the angels to bow to Adam, they bowed down, all except Iblis. There's a faulty tafsir. There is a lie, a forged narration that Abdullah ibn Abbas said that this Iblis that refused to prostrate, he was from the angels. And when Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned that the angels, they are khuluqu min nur in the Quran, said they are created from nur, and they have many wings. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned this in many surahs, such as Surah Ra'd and other surah. And when the Prophet said that the angel were created from nur as well, in authentic narrations. And when Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned that the jinn were created from Narin Samum, smokeless fire. And then Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala said about the angels, يُخَافُونَ رَبَّهُمْ مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ, and they are those that have fear of their Lord who is above them in every way. And that Lord that's above them, those angels, وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ, but they, rather than disobeying him, they obey that which they are commanded. So this is the angels. So this is a faulty, a fabricated explanation that has been linked and said that Ibn Abbas mentioned this tafsir. So this is another type of explanation that we cannot accept, because we know it goes against that which the Prophet said, that which Allah said in the Quran, that which the Prophet explained on his blessed tongue, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is the opposite from what we know that is authentically reported by Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. We also had the faulty narrations, such as the narration about prophecy, where the Prophet ﷺ, he's the last prophet, and Allah said, مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدًا أَبَا أَحَدٌ مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدًا أَبَا أَحَدٌ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ, that Muhammad is not the father of any one of you, وَلَكِنْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ وَخَاتِمَ النَّبِيِّينَ, rather he is the prophet, the messenger of Allah, and the seal of the prophets. Seal of the prophets here includes messengers, as every messenger is a prophet. So Allah called him the messenger of Allah, therefore he is the prophet. And if he's the seal of all of the prophets, he's the seal of all of the messengers, meaning no more revelation, no more prophets. But there's a faulty narration that's been fabricated, as we mentioned, from the hadith wada'i that have been made up, attributed to the Prophet, attributed to companions. but said, La Nabiyyu Ba'di. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, La Nabiyyu Ba'di. There's no prophet after me, illa sha'a, except if Allah wills. And this illa sha'a has been added to the authentic narration, La Nabiyyu Ba'di. That the Prophet said, there's no prophet after me. La Nabiyyu. La Nabiyyu Ba'di. Nabiyyu here means, in a general sense, there's no prophet at all to come after me. Then he said, illa sha'a, except if Allah decides. But we understand that there's no if Allah decides, because Allah said clearly that He's the last of the prophets. So this is some of the ways of faulty tafsir, some of the ways that we mentioned the last time. We also mentioned the statement about Fatima not being from the women of the dunya. She is a woman that's a woman of the paradise, meaning she's not from the women that were created here like normally. But rather, Prophet ﷺ, when he made the ascension to the heavens and back down to the earth in one night, that Jibril called him to a special tree to sit under the tree. And the Prophet was commanded to eat and drink from this tree, and thus Jibril was commanded to tell the Prophet this by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As he ate and drank from this tree, then Allah gave him a special type of mutafah. A special type of mutafah, which means sperm, and that when he returned back to the earth, this special sperm that was put in his loins, inside of his back, when he went back to Mecca from Jerusalem, then he had relations with Khadija, and thus Fatima came as a daughter, as a woman, as a lady from the paradise, and not from the normal sperm that people have in this life. This is a narration, again, that's fabricated. And one of the ways we know, as we said before, the tariq, the authentic history, the recall of incidents, that is, that Fatima was born, we have authentic narrations 5 years before the event of the Prophet becoming a prophet, 5 years before the prophethood of the Prophet, Fatima was born. So how could she be born 5 years before the prophecy that the Prophet? How can she be born 5 years before prophethood, of the Prophet, and then be born again a year or two before they go to Medina, which this was the ascension and descension, up and down, up to the heavens and back, from Mecca to Jerusalem, up to the heavens and back. This happened a couple of years before they were commanded to go to Medina. So how could she be born 2 different times? Either she's born at this time or that time. So according to history, she was born 5 years before he became prophet, as he was married to Khadija before prophethood. Then Khadija herself died a year or so before the Isra wa Mi'raj, before he left from Mecca on the night journey to Jerusalem with the great animal Buraq that was sent from the heavens. And then he went up and back down. Khadija was already deceased. Fatima was born 5 years before he was even a prophet. So how could this be? How can this be if the Prophet ﷺ lived 13 years in Mecca and she was 5 years before he became prophet? Then this would mean that Fatima had to be at least 10, 11 years old at this time. How could she be a special sperm given to the Prophet ﷺ during this event, and then Khadija impregnated with Fatima after this event when she died, Khadija herself before this event, and Fatima was born before prophethood. This is one of the ways we know that this explanation of Quran cannot be accepted and that it is fabricated. And there are many other ways. Also, we mentioned the issue of that which Allah He explains in one verse or another concerning His own speech, where Allah has mentioned, for example, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين in Surah Al-Fatiha. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, the way that you have given to those whom you have blessed. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين, and not those who are maghdub, neither those who are ضالين. So the صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, Allah explained in Surah An-Nisa. صراط الذين أنعم الله عليهم, the way that Allah has given to those who He has given them that way. من الأنبياء, from the prophets. والصديقين, and the true ones, those who really believe, devoted after prophets. والصديقين, and those who really devoted after prophets. And the prophets are first, and those who are not prophets, but they're just as devoted as prophets. من الأنبياء, نعم, من الأنبياء, and prophets, and this includes those prophets that have been given revelation, so they're messengers too. وَالصِّدِّقِينَ, those that really believe, but they're not prophets, but they are those who really believe with a strong conviction, and they follow the prophets. وَالصَّالِحِينَ, وَالشُّهَدَاء, and those who die in the cause of Allah. وَالصَّالِحِينَ, and those who are the righteous, those who are from the general believers. So Allah explained what is that way, the way of the prophets and messengers, and Anbiya, wal Mursaleen. This includes the messengers, prophets and messengers. Was-Sadiqeen, those who are the true believers, those who really believed in those prophets on a high level and they followed them. Was-Shuhada, those who died in the cause of Allah. Was-Salihin, and those who are the Salihin. This is Allah Himself explaining in another verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna anzalna fi laylatin mubarakah. Indeed, we have sent it down on a blessed night. Al-Tabarak wa ta'ala explained in another part of the Quran, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. We have sent it down the night of decree. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. What is Laylatul Qadr? Laylatul Qadr خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ. It's a night that is better than 1,000 months. And this is in the month of Ramadan. So this is one way of tafsir, Quran bi Quran. The Quran bi hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith al-mutahhara, the hadith al-sahiha, the clear, pure, authentic sunnah, statement of the Prophet is verified, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there's a science to verify that. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioning the meaning of the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, he said, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakrin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu, inna akramakum inda Allahi atqakum, inna Allaha sami'un alim. Now, where Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned the meaning in English, O people, indeed we have created you all, male and female, and a nation and tribes. We've created you male and female and a nation and tribe. And we have made you like that so that you may know one another. Verily, the most noble from amongst you are those who have piety, taqwa. Verily, Allah is the one who hears, and He's all-knowing. And Prophet explained this verse talking about the issue of Abdullah ibn Qais, when he went to sit down and they would not open the area for him to sit. They made no room for him to sit out of tribalism, out of racism. And the Prophet explained the meaning of this. Also, the Prophet ﷺ explained from the hadith of, as we mentioned before, Surah Maryam, Ya Ukhta Harun, Ma kana abuki imra'an saw'an wa ma ummuka baghiya. He explained that this is not the Harun that is the brother of Musa. Rather, this is a Harun that was the real brother of Mary. And although Harun is the name of a brother of the prophet Musa, and they were both prophets and brothers to one another, this is not the same reference to this Harun. This is another Harun. The Prophet explained that. Also, the Prophet ﷺ, he explained, Barakallahu fikum, the meaning of وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. And eat and drink until the white thread has been distinct from the dark thread of the Fajr, the black thread of the Fajr. He said, الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ هُنَا الضَّوْءُ مِنَ النَّهَارِ الضَّوْءُ النَّهَارِ من يعني سواد الليل. نعم وكما قيل. This white thread means the light of the day approaching, differentiating from the darkness, the blackness of night. This is Quran explained by authentic Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you have from the Sahaba. From the Sahaba, such as the statement of Abdullah ibn Abbas when he explained وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ, and your Lord has qada that you worship no one except him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, and that you be obedient, dutiful, respectful, responsible to your parents. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ, and your Lord has qada here means وَوَصَى رَبُّكَ, that your Lord has wasa. And wasa here carries the meaning of being admonished, being obligated, being informed, like this. Well, qada could mean decided. Qada can mean also predetermined. Qada could mean decided, azama. Abdullah ibn Abbas explained it. Also, the tafsir of the Sahaba, radwanullah alayhim ajma'een, such as Abdullah ibn Abbas again, when Qudama said that the statement of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, laysa ala alladhina laysa ليس على الذين حرج ليس على الذين حرج ليس على الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات حرج فيما طعموا إذا ما اتقوا وآمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ثم اتقوا وآمنوا ثم اتقوا وأحسنوا والله يحب المحسنين. Where Miqdad, where Qudama, pardon me, not Miqdad, Qudama, he thought that the statement ليس على الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات جناح فيما طعموا, and there is no sin on the one who believe and do good deeds when he فيما طعموا, concerning the drinking of khamr. إذا آمنوا واتقوا ثم اتقوا ليس الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات إذا فيما طعموا إذا ما اتقوا وآمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ثم اتقوا وآمنوا ثم اتقوا وأحسنوا والله يحب المحسنين. He thought that this verse meant There is no sin or blame on the one who believes and does righteous deeds. When he fears Allah and he does righteous deeds, and then on top of that, he does the righteous deeds and he does the highest actions in the religion, because Allah loves those who believe and does the highest acts of religion. He says, so I pray and I do all the obligations and I fought in all of the battles with the messenger, which is from the highest levels of worship, so I can drink. But Abdullah ibn Abbas told him, no, this ayat was revealed for those who were in that state of believing, doing righteous deeds, and doing the highest acts of deeds, but they didn't leave drinking. They were still stuck on drinking. This verse was revealed before the prohibition of drinking, meaning drinking had not been prohibited in that time, so Allah Azza wa Jal overlooked them, whereas if the prohibition came down, there will be no overlooking. We also have the issue, Barakallahu Fikum, of the difference of opinion in tafsir. Difference of opinion even from amongst the Sahaba. As some people that would say, how could the Sahaba differ in the meanings of the Quran? But they would differ in the meanings of the Quran, not in the belief. Not in the belief. They would not differ in the issues of belief, aqidah. They would not differ if the verses were talking about aqidah, belief, such as Allah and things connected to Allah, the prophets, the books, the hellfire, things connected to the Day of Judgment, the paradise, the angels, and so forth. They would not differ about those verses, so clear. Also the halal and the haram, that which Allah prohibited, and that which Allah, barakallahu fikum, made lawful. They would not differ about those things. They would not differ about the creed, the aqidah, the tawheed, the worship of Allah, the belief in Allah, and the things that are in the category of belief. They were not different, the halal and the haram, but they would differ about the other meanings, different things concerning everyday living and dealings with people and so forth, transactions and the likes. So when you find them coming to a difference of opinion, then the first thing we should understand is that they only differed in those verses because the Prophet did not explain them. He only explained what Allah told him to explain, what Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala gave him details of, then he elaborated. If Allah did not give him details, then he would not elaborate. So this understood the Sahaba, يعني قد اتفقوا على Quran mujmalan, that they understood and they agreed upon the meaning of the Quran generally. The Sahaba used to agree upon the meaning of the Quran generally, and they would believe in that Quran, and they understood that Quran in their own native language generally. وَلَكِنْ فِي تَفْصِيلٍ, but the details, then this was knowledge that Allah gave the Prophet. Gave the Prophet, and if the Prophet didn't give it to them, it was because Allah didn't give him details about that verse. If Allah gave him details, then he would explain all of the details to his companions. Therefore, Tabarak wa Ta'ala sent the Quran in their language in order that they may understand it firsthand from the messenger, because it was their language. So Allah said, "Inna anzalna Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'allakum ta'qilun." Indeed, we have sent the Arabic Quran to you. Indeed, we have sent the Quran in the Arabic language to you so that you may understand. Allah has called it fi lisanin Arabiyyin mubin, in a clear Arabic tongue. So that's in a general sense. Amma tafsilan, as it relates to the details that only come from Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, that only comes from the knowledge of Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, from the merciful, the most gracious, the most graceful, and the most gracious, which is Allah. That knowledge only comes from Him. It is from Ilm al-Ghayb, the knowledge that is of the unseen, that you don't know about of the past, you don't know about the future. Only Allah, He has the knowledge. Then if the Prophet was given that detailed knowledge, he delivered it. So therefore, if they differed in verses, meaning the meaning of those verses that were not in the issues of aqidah, creed, were not in the issues of halal and haram, what's prohibited and what's lawful. But in the other areas, such as narration, stories, or things dealing with ahkam, how things should be played out, or the different ways things should be applied, then that's because the Prophet did not give them details, and they used the knowledge that they had from their own language, or from what they understood about other verses similarly, or what they understood about the environment or the people at that time, to come up, to extract, which is from the job of those who have that type of knowledge, to extract or to come up with a meaning. And if they differed in that regard, then that's where you take that which coincides with what is right, what coincides with that which is true, that which coincides with other texts, that which coincides with other things, then you take it. And that which does not coincide, then you leave it. That which does not coincide, then you leave it. And then you have that when they debate or they differ in those affairs, that you cannot say this one is right and that one is wrong. You just have the two positions, and you yourself are not obliged to take that meaning and to act upon it. You can take the meaning, discuss it. You can take the meaning and show what they intended from it, but to act on it, you cannot force someone to act on this meaning or that meaning if there's a difference of opinion from the companions. And then you have lastly that which obviously cannot be accepted, because we cannot verify if it coincides with something that previously came, or if it's closer to what we understand to be true. Then we leave it. We leave it. We don't debate over it. We don't take it. We don't use it in these or from the different aspects of the Quran concerning the companions, and then those after them, or the tabi'in. We understand the tabi'in during their time, they became consumed with riwayat al-Israeliyat. They took so many narrations from the people about the people of the book, and they didn't scrutinize them and challenge them like the companions did. They didn't. And they were overwhelmed by these narrations. Thus they entered them into writings and so forth. And those narrations, or the narrations that we mentioned before, from the dakhil, that which entered to the religion by way of writings that has no basis in the religion, and those narrations, they're either accepted because they're verified by the Quran or by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or we leave them and we don't believe in them. Neither do we reject them. We just say that these are narrations that came, but we don't act on them. We don't use them as a proof, and they may be used to show virtue only. They may be used to be showing virtue only, according to some scholars, but they cannot be used as a legitimate ruling, or as a rule of thumb, or as a principle, or as an injunction, those that come from the people of the past nations. And it is not verified if it comes with a cosigner, a verse from the Quran or a statement from the Prophet to back up that narration of the Israeliyat. We also want to mention some of the Sahaba that were scholars of tafsir, such as Abdullah ibn Abbas. And Abdullah ibn Abbas, he was the main school of tafsir in Mecca. He was the main scholar of tafsir from the companions in general, and his school was in Mecca. From among some of his students that were the tabi'in, those that followed and learned from him from the second generation, was Tawus ibn Kaysan. Tawus, and it's mentioned unanimously that he's thiqah, he's reliable in what he narrates, what he understands. You also had Barakallahu Fikum, Imam Mujahid. which it is consensus that Mujahid was Imam in tafsir. Imam here meaning he was a person who had a lot of tafsir, a lot of knowledge and the high knowledge of the tafsir, and that he was also thiqah, reliable. You can take his narrations. You had also Atta ibn Abi Rabah. Atta ibn Abi Rabah, where Abdullah ibn Abbas said, Ma balakum tatrakuna Atta wa tatrakuna Atta wa ati ilayya. What is wrong with you all? You come to me to ask me about the meanings of the Quran and you abandon Atta. This is a verification of his knowledge, testification from Ibn Abbas Taskiya, saying, I dare you come to me. How could you come to me and leave him when he's here? You also have Barakallahu Fikum Ikramah, which is from the Tabi'een, students of Abdullah ibn Abbas, known to be trustworthy, reliable, thiqah in his tafsir. Yes. You have from the people of Iraq the great scholar of tafsir Ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, in Iraq. From amongst his students that were leaders in tafsir, Masruq, who was from the students of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and from the ulama of tafsir. You also had Barakallahu Fikum Dahaq. It was from the Tabi'een, second generation, from the students of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and the tafsir of the Quran. You also had Barakallahu Fikum Qatada, which is from the Tabi'een and from the students of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in tafsir, thiqah, or was known to be trustworthy, reliable for his tafsir. And there are many others from the main students of the companions of tafsir. Also you had in Al-Medina Ubay ibn Ka'b. Ubay ibn Ka'b was the head school of tafsir there in Medina, and he had his students with him, such as he had his students with him then in Medina, such as Hassan al-Basri, Hassan al-Basri, from the students of Ubay ibn Ka'b, Hassan al-Basri, the great Tabi, and the one of Tafsir. And you had many other from amongst the students of the Sahaba and Tafsir. They spread all over, and this is from some of the benefits of the Tafsir. From amongst those that came later, the well-known ulama of Tafsir, Imam Jarir al-Tabari, Imam Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari from Tabaristan, which would be understood to be the region of Iran in this time. Imam al-Tabari was one of the first to compile tafsir the way that he did, with the ayats, explaining the ayats from the Quran, narration of the Sahaba. And know that his tafsir normally doesn't have tashih or tad'if. It doesn't have, if the hadith is sahih or da'if, he just brings the narrations of the Sahaba. And his tafsir is known to be from the tafsir of Ahlul Sunnah, from the people who are known to be from the people of Sunnah, not from the people of Bid'ah, and he's also known to be from the Ummahat, the leading scholars of Tafsir. Rather, he's the Imam of Tafsir, the first of the people to make books of Tafsir. Then we have Mala Barakallahu Fikum, one who came and copied his style after him, who's from the Ummahat, the leaders of Tafsir, and from the section of the scholars of Tafsir from Ahlul Sunnah, meaning those who clung to the Sunnah wal Jama'ah and the way and the statements of the Sahaba. This is Imam Abu Faddah Abu Ismail Ibn Kathir. And Ibn Kathir, in his tafsir, he has the ayats, explain the ayat. He has the ayat explaining other ayat. He has a hadith of the Prophet with the chain, and he does indicate sometime if it comes from Bukhari in the Sahih, he will say وَأَخْرَجُوا فِي السَّحِيحِ. Sahih means the Sahih of Imam Bukhari. If you hear as-Sahih by itself, it means the Sahih of al-Bukhari. He may mention Imam Muslim said, Akhwaju Imam Muslim. He may mention the hadith in Gharib. This hadith is Gharib, meaning Da'if. He may mention sometimes the narration of the Israeliyat is from this perspective accepted, or this one is not accepted. And he may mention some positions if there's two different opinions on the meaning of a verse, or if there's three positions from the people of the past, such as Imam Malik, Shafi, and Ahmed, like this, Imam Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala. You have also tafsir, barakallahu fikum, Jamakhshari, naam, and this tafsir Jamakhshari, the tafsir Zamakhshari, pardon me, I was pronouncing it wrong, Zamakhshari, and he likes to give tafsir based on the lugha, based on the word by word from the Arabic perspective, from the perspective of the Arabic language. You also have the tafsir of Imam al-Qurtubi from Andalus. His style is historical. He brings the narrations, and he may not bring, if the narration is sahih all the time. If not, he brings the ayah, but he brings the historical facts, and like this, something like the Tariq, historically like this. We also have a tafsir Razi, a tafsir Imam Razi of Abu Bakr, Muhammad Razi. That his tafsir is based on the time that he lived in. He wrote based upon the environment. He will give tafsir relative to what was going on during that time, and like a contemporary style of his time. We also have barakallahu fikum a tafsir al-Madha Jalalaini, the two Jalals from Egypt. The one Jalal, he finished the Quran starting in the middle, I think from Surah Al-Kahf to Nas, and then he died, and then his student after he died did from Al-Fatiha to Surah Al-Isra, which is 17, the surah before number 18, which is Kaf, and it became known as Tafsir Jalalain, the two Jalals, Jalal As-Suyuti and the other Jalal, which finished it, both of them from Egypt. And this tafsir is a very brief tafsir. It has some it has some debatable positions or explanation concerning a few areas of the names